I'll just start there. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who reside as aliens. And so we turn over to where we are, chapter 2, verse 11. Beloved, I urge you as aliens. He reminds them of this. This is what they are. Aliens, and he adds this, it's just an underline, and strangers. To abstain from fleshly lusts which wage war against the soul. So, in one regard, he's speaking to them as physical aliens. They're living in a country that they didn't grow up in. They might, I don't know what they did with citizenry in those days, because it was all the Roman Empire. But there they were, in a different place. So they were aliens. They had to deal with a different culture, with people that maybe thought about things in a little different way. That's all well and good. But now here, he had strangers, but he's got to be also talking about something that's deeper than the cultural. When he says, wage war against the soul. So he's, in effect, he's talking to every Christian throughout all the ages. We are strangers. We are aliens. Yeah. We are. It's a different culture. Yeah. When I became a Christian, I began to see that things were different than I had been raised with, by way of how people thought and so on. And I'd been a Christian for, I think it was just, I was crowding a couple years, and I went to Bible college. And now I had been, as a Christian, I had been working at a secular job, running heavy equipment on a construction job, working with plumbers and pipe fitters. Interesting people, colorful in their language. Most of them were bilingual. Many of them spoke French. That's what they told me. Pardon my French. Okay. Then I went to Bible college. Shockingly different. It better have been. Yeah, shockingly different. It was a different culture. Totally. We're strangers, we're aliens. And as such, we have to separate ourselves in some ways in our heads and in our living, in our thinking, speech, appearance. Beloved, I urge you. How strong a word is that? Urge. It's not a suggestion word. I urge you. I really mean it. I urge you. You. Since you're this, alien and strangers, to do something, abstain. We sometimes are redundant in our speaking. We'll say something twice, use two words to say the same thing. Total abstainer. That's, I abstain. But it's a way that we emphasize. I totally abstain. I don't play with this. I leave it alone. A doctor will ask you, Do you smoke? Well, what are you going to say? No. I want to hear a no. No. Have you ever? No. Well, can't always say that. Yeah. It's kind of like asking somebody, are you married? Can I think that over and come back next week?
Like when you ask the kids, when did you brush your teeth last?
Yeah, there's that. There. Did you wash your hands? Yeah, did you? And then, you know, you always say yes. And then, of course, they're trying to trip you up. Grandma's really bad at that. Did you use soap? Well, keep up the lie, you know, yeah. There's a towel in there to prove it. It's all dirty. All right. Here we are. Abstain. Abstain. A total abstainer? Well, either you do or you don't. You're married or you aren't. Abstain from fleshly lusts. And these are harmful because they wage war, not just a harassing. This is war against your soul. Fleshly lust. So what do you do with these desires? Now, not all desires come under this heading. But who's in control? And when it has to be controlled, that's what we're talking about. There are some desires that's easy. Some aren't. Some really, oh boy. So, he tells us, I urge you as aliens and strangers to abstain from fleshly lusts. Now, I used desires. Lust and a natural, God-given desire are different. Men and women are created to be attracted to each other. Lust can screw that all up. And there are all kinds of lusts that come in here. And hey, eternally they'll kill you. They wage war against your soul. So they will eternally kill you, your soul. So, is this an important subject? Oh, yeah. Only if you consider eternity important. Well, yeah, I do. So, they wage war against the soul. But here's something you can do for it. A way that'll help you out. Keep your behavior excellent. Who's he talking to? Aliens and strangers, but we call them what? Christians. Yeah, thank you. Christians, okay. So Christians, you can't keep something you don't have.
That's right.
So keep your behavior excellent. You have it, hang on to it. For dear life, hang on to it. It's the only way you'll ever hold it. So, keep your behavior, the way you act, the way you conduct yourself, excellent. Isn't mediocre. Isn't, that's the best I could do under circumstances. Excellent. I'm no fan of the National Football League anymore. None. I don't watch it. I don't want to know anything about it. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. But there was a team. It used to play football in Oakland. forget what they're called. Kind of. And they had a sign in the back that you would notice. Pursuit of excellence. I don't know what happened to the pursuit, but the word is good word. An automobile manufacturer has picked up on it. Was it Lexus or Toyota? Pursuit of excellence. Surely isn't Ford. Oops, sorry, Ed. Okay, excellence. Keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles. Now, he uses Gentiles here in a way that we can understand as Christian, non-Christian. So, Christians, keep your behavior excellent when you're out among the Gentiles, those who aren't saved, who need to be, so that in the things in which they slander you, and they will, slander you as what? Well, they're not going to slander you as you're just too good. And you just have such a marvelous character that, boy, you're really a grand person. That's not the kind of slander. Slander means telling a lie about a person. They try to slander you as an evildoer. Why do they do that? Because your excellent behavior makes them look bad. And the worse you make them more obviously slandered than any other, and that's being a politician. I pity anybody that wants to be or is and has so much as a parking ticket. And these days is so much as a man having shaken a lady's hand. You're in trouble. Yeah. You held it too long. I'm going to get you. And especially if you have money. Okay. And I'm not saying that anything more than that about it, that part. As far as a Christian is concerned, we really do have to be on our very best behavior all of the time, because we will be slandered as evildoers. And even with excellent behavior, you run the risk. But nonetheless, here we are. Keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles, so that in the thing in which they slander you, and they'll pick something out and work on it, as evildoers, they may, because of your good deeds, as they observe them, change their mind. Your good deeds, okay, so you have them, and they're visible. Now, there's some things we do, we just want to do it anonymously. That's well and good. But there are some good deeds, just living your life like you ought to, that they're visible. I was working in Bible college. I worked quite a bit as a mechanic in a muffler shop. You weld and so forth, the pipes and so forth under a car. One day I was trying to weld a pipe, and we had a bracket that I had to weld to a frame. And I couldn't do it with my normal method of welding, which was gas, acetylene, oxygen. And so I had to do it with a stick welder. Wire welders were 50 years away yet. A stick welder, which you had to strike an arc, get the thing to go. And this guy kept wanting to tell me a dirty joke. And I told him, I said, I don't want to hear your dirty joke. What are you, some kind of saint or something? Yes.
Amen.
And the man spoke some French, and which didn't change my mind about being a saint. And then I struck an art on his gas line. Now, if you know anything about welding, well, that immediately put a little hole in his gas line with fire, real hot fire, spark. And then he began to yell at me, and I realized that was English. So I lifted my hood to see fire. I convinced him that that was not done purposefully. And we went on and everything was good. But now, this business of trying to do the best that you can and letting people know, listen, you know, I don't want to hear your dirty stories, your jokes that have double meanings, and I don't want that. I don't want to hear my Lord's name done in vain. I do want to hear, if you want to talk about the Bible, we can do that. And yet you don't have to be, in the eyes of people, you don't have to be so heavenly minded you're no earthly good. You have to work with that too. You do. So with this, they may, doesn't say they absolutely in every instance will, they may, because of your good deeds, as they observe them, glorify God. How good it is when you do visitation. God gives them opportunity. You're there to help them with it. Now, there's a deeper historical background to that day of visitation with these Jews who were living in a different country, aliens, strangers. And that is, this is pre-AD 70, when Christianity was looked at as nothing but a sect of Judaism. And Jews were looked at as kind of a substandard species by those who weren't Jews. And so therefore Christians were also. And so it was a little bit of an extra burden on the Christians of that day to have to, boy, you got to be good. You got to be extra good. You got to be better than you could ever figure yourself to be, just to receive an even break. Now 70 AD changed that somewhat, in that the Jewish economy was gone. I mean, the way they did things, and Jerusalem wasn't there. It's one of those places that if it were in the modern society, you'd drive through it and say, that used to be a town. And that's how utterly and totally it was destroyed. And so this reprieve was given to Christians. Anyway, as far as their living and their lives were to be, they were to keep their behavior excellent. Let their good deeds be seen, and let people observe them, not just to be seen, but you just live your life in a way it's natural for you, it's not put on. And they pick up on that, and well, this is just the way the guy is, or the lady is, and they can then glorify God in that day. Now we get into something this has been easy. We get into something that's hard. Submit. What do you think? Submit. Is that a nice word? I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. Is that a nice word?
It's not something you want to do.
You know what I'm hearing?
What context are you using it in?
Ed's finding me out. What context? Well, suppose I was talking to my car, and there's a bolt that gotta come loose, and it won't. It has to submit. It's got to do it. That isn't what we're talking about, so I'll stop with that. Submit one to another, person to person. Okay. Can it be positive?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You go in to see the doctor and he says, I want you to do this. Submit to it if you want to be well, usually. I'd submit to what the doctor says. Take these pills. Oh, yeah, I've got a great big drawer, and I think there's room in there for another one. Submit. Or submit yourselves for the Lord's sake. Now, that puts the onus on us to where, hey, I'm doing this for God. To every human institution. For God? But God, and here comes the squirming. Oh, we can squirm and we can wiggle and we can try to get out of things, can't we? We learned it young. Children do that. Very young they learned that. Did you dirty your diapers? No. Yes, you did. Okay, submit yourselves for the Lord's sake to every human institution. Now, there's a guy that he wrote this, and it's kind of a paraphrase and a little add-on, where he says, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man, in every settled state, and under every form of political government, where the laws are not in opposition to the laws of God, it may be very soundly and rationally said, genuine Christians have nothing to do with the laws. But to obey them. Is he accurate?
Yeah.
He is. That's accurate. Genuine Christians have nothing to do with the laws, but to obey them. Well, then, I have to decide what I obey and what I don't. Because it might be against the laws of God. Now, you want to be careful going down that road. And we can't really talk about this verse unless we were to throw in Romans 13. Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities. For there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authority has opposed the ordinance of God, and they who have opposed will receive condemnation upon themselves. For rulers are not a cause of fear for good behavior, but for evil. Do you want to have no fear of author? All right, but Paul wrote it during what phase of his life? He was in prison where? In Rome. And who was the government? woo, submit to Nero and to the Roman emperors, the Caesars, the way they had that place rigged up, submit to that. Well, now if Paul could write that at that time to those people, to the Christians at that time, what about us? Are we really that bad off? Drain the swamp? We talk about our government in pretty harsh terms sometimes. I think the very, very best way to get over that, get over it, is to go to a foreign country. Well, which one? Pick one. Pick one. I don't care. Pick one. And you'd get over it. You'd appreciate our government a whole bunch more. Yeah, you may disagree with them, sure. But that doesn't mean that we can be Jeff, you had your hand up. What?
I'm just thinking when he's writing this and just what he's talking about is talking about the aliens and strangers, and he's saying, you have a citizenship somewhere else, being heaven, and here's the guidelines by which you live. You still are a citizen of heaven, even though you're living in a foreign country. You have to live by your citizenship, not by what they're, living by.
You see, I haven't read all of the verse. Let me read the rest of it. Submit yourself for the Lord's sake to every human institution. Whether, now this is in case you, what's an institution? Whether to a king, as to the one in authority, or to governors as sent by him, that king, that is, for the punishment of evildoers and the praise of those who do right. And he's going to go on in that vein for a bit. So we're strangers. And whether you want to look at this, we're aliens, all right. I'm living in a foreign land where things are done a little differently than I'm used to. And I'm having to submit to whoever's ruling here. Well, there's that. Or there's I'm here on earth temporarily as an alien, and this isn't my home. I am likewise to submit so that I can get along here and be a shining light to the one who is my Lord, my King.
Amen.
And if I do anything else, well, if you want to look at it physically, politically here, well, I could get myself in a real bind with the authorities because I just haven't submitted, and I'm on their radar now, and whatever I do, they'll get you. Or I can look at it spiritually. I'm a rebel. What does God look at rebels as? Rebellion is worse than the sin of witchcraft, divination. That's kind of yuck. That's really bad news. I don't know what God could say, the scriptures could tell us, that makes being a rebel any worse. It's awful. So there's that. So as we look at this, submit yourselves. Every human institution, for the Lord's sake, by the way, kings, governors, those that the governors send, or that the king sent, they'll punish evildoers, praise those who are right. So, I look back in Proverbs 22:1, and it says, a good name is rather to be chosen. If you have a good name, it's more valuable to you in whatever situation you find yourself than riches.
Yeah, that's right.
than trying to buy your way either out of trouble or into trouble or whatever. A bribe takes cold, hard cash. For everything else, there's MasterCard. No, a good name is rather to be chosen. He says right there in the last thing that I read, praise of those who do right. There's punishment of evildoers in verse 14, or there's praise of those who do right. A good name is rather to be chosen. For such is the will of God, oh yeah, that by doing right you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. A good name is rather to be chosen, you see. So it gets clear back up to verse 12. Good deeds as they observe them. A good name is rather to be chosen. All of this works together for good as far as the Lord's name is concerned. Because, hey, Christian, you're wearing it. You're wearing His name. Yeah. When I tell people my last name, they smile and they say, any relation? To Edgar Allan, you know, and any relation? And I said, yeah, he's my uncle, my idiot uncle, please. And that's as close as it comes. A good name. Now, my name is recognizable because of Edgar Allan Poe. But, and it's good because, I mean, Poe is a very, very difficult name to spell. and T-O-E, D-O-E, R-O-E, and you can put anything with it. And so I say Poe with one L. What? Yeah. Like Spinati with 2 R's. Really? So you can do that with people, and it's fun. Unless it's at the DMV and then you want to get it right. No jokes. Play it straight. All right. So submit yourself. For the Lord's sake, a good name is rather to be chosen. In verse 15, for such is the will of God, that by doing right, you may silence the ignorance of foolish men. Act as free men, and do not use your freedom as a covering for evil, but use it as bondslaves to God. Okay, you've worked hard. You've tried to wear the name Christian in a proper and forthright way. You've got a good name, and you're wearing your Christian name as a good name. And now, free in Christ and unafraid. All right, you've got so many good things going for you, so you can act like you're free. You're freed from sin. You're freed from the bondage of the habits that the world would lay on you, and the lusts that come with it. So act as free men, but don't use that freedom as a cover-up. I am free. I am a Christian. I'm on my way to heaven, etc., etc., etc. But boy, if people really knew what I am inside. It's a cover-up. It's a cover-up. I'm honest until it comes down to time to sell my car. Hi, Mike. He bought my car. Is it okay?
It's fine.
Whew. All right. You got to be not using or hiding behind the name Christian, church member. And it helps all of us if we'll all be honest, if we'll all be as we ought to be as a congregation, someone in a congregation. And are we ever going to be called hypocrites? Are we ever not? As long as it can't stick, it mustn't.
Somebody once said that the greatest cause of atheism and people leave the church is people that acknowledge Christ with their mouth and deny him with their lifestyle. And everybody knows, as soon as you talk to somebody, well, I know this preacher that did this, or I know this church that did this, and they always bring up these examples of people that messed up, and it does, it hurts everybody.
Brother Jim Spinati, we've had quite a conversation, and he told us some about his early background, and correct me if I get this wrong, but when he first became a Christian, the first church he went to, the preacher turned out to do what? Should I tell him?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
First preacher turned out to have committed adultery. He didn't like that. He left, went to another church. What did that preacher do? Same thing. Hey, you know, that affects whole congregations in a community who has a tremendous memory. So we have to behave ourselves. What does it say up here? Abstain from fleshly lusts which wage war against the soul. Keep your behavior excellent. Okay, I got to stop because I'm out of time, and we'll continue this, Lord willing, then next week.